Is that a big eagle behind me, or is that a guy or a girl having fun with the use of solar energy? You could use it for transportation, but mostly leisure. Not solar, wind energy. But wind energy is partly solar. Hey, yeah, took up my sweater again. I like it. I was at church always saying, hey, can a non-religious person come in after, always looking for opportunities to partake in a sense of community. One guy that was a teacher talked to after, I said, hey, do you know that you just keep trying to sell me your worldview? And I was teaching him critical thinking, and I finally got him to ask me what life skills is. I said, I'm a life skills coach, and am I asking him? He said he taught it, but he can't say what it is when I'm asking him to define it. So finally he asked me to define it, and then I gave examples of critical thinking based on the things he was saying. And the conversation got better because it involved both of us instead of him just selling me his ideology and his worldview. This one today is May 1st, and it is the Master of Science in Ecocentric Worldview. By the way, people, man, look up the worldview. Like, I'm in arguments with people about ecocentric, and they think it means having some environmental values or something, as defined by, again, an anthropocentric, frame of reference. Man, I'm talking about worldviews. And worldviews is deep. It guides everything you do, including how your values evolve and get canceled or changed. And how you can tell that people that are leading environmental movements, or that are, environmental ministers in government or whatever, are not even close to being ecocentric. I'm able to see this with the worldview. So it's important to define things properly. So this is part 2, by the way, of Earth Day 2022. And of course there'll be many parts, because Earth Day is not just one day. It's the day that we, even after we're dead, it's Earth Day, because you're being reabsorbed if, the energy you consumed isn't wasted in turning you to ash or building a coffin or things like that. If it can just be buried in a nice biodegradable blanket, that'd be nicer. Be reflecting somebody that's ecocentric a bit more. So unless you're talking about how your society is not like this, you're not ecocentric. You pretend to be, but you don't want to be in the arguments. So, arguments come with the worldview. So, just like this guy said, do you believe in wrestling? The guy at church. Professional wrestling, not Olympic wrestling. But he said, no, usually it's predetermined, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I say, well, the kind of arguments you're using for Christianity beliefs is exactly the same as, okay, you heard this story once, it's not even first-hand, it's second-hand or third-hand, and then you just reinforce your own ideology. Well, I said, what if one time, because when I was a kid, like, I sat in the front row one time, and you can tell they missed each other by like 10 inches, and yet they act like they've been hit. And I turn around and I see the adults who sometimes can see the space between the hit, and they're yelling like it's real. So they're doing what he's doing. They're selling some sort of fake interpretation of what they want, beliefs or feelings. And it's pretty sad. So I told him, let's say one time somebody goes and the wrestlers, had an argument on the bus the day before, and they are a little bit rough with each other, but they can handle it, but there's still a little bit of real blood. So do you use that one time that there's real blood to say it's never fake? Well, that's kind of what he was doing. It's not really reasoning. So I wanted to say that follow-up to part 1 is if somebody is in a society that is pro-change or culture repair focused, and I mean pro-life, not anti-life like all societies I've heard about are. That's the way they behave if you do the math. If you do the math, they are harming the concept of life, the biosphere on this planet. So even if they have one little program there, it might seem like it's taken a few steps forward. They still got a majority of ways to do things that take steps backwards for life on this planet. And life on this planet isn't defined by just your species. And yet people say they're ecocentric, and their arguments sound like they're just talking about their species. What the hell? Quality of life for who? Because even if it's just your species, you're like in denial about believing that the laws of physics on one planet can give this definition of your quality of life to everybody in your species, and the number keeps growing on a finite planet. Yeah, sure, you're egocentric. So the vasectomy idea I had is it has to be before somebody has kids. And usually, it'd be an educated person that would decide this. I don't know what you want to sort out if somebody already can't have kids, but somebody could adopt too. But you don't make adoption capitalistic like it seems to be everywhere I've ever heard about. So it's human trafficking. It's slavery. It's allowing people to have kids where they would die if you don't adopt them and give them this much money that doesn't even go to them. And then they repeat. What the hell's wrong with you people? Ecocentric. So, number 2. I gotta apologize for these vlogs, right? Because they hurt your sensibilities. It's because I'm not late with the times. So I'm apologizing for not being late with the times, and it hurts your feelings. I'm gonna propose with this triad that I started one project where it's related to the book called 10 Billion People by Stephen or Stephen. It's written like Stephen. Sometimes it's pronounced like Stephen. Emyet, because he only uses one swear word, I think, at the end, just to bring the seriousness of the matter home, because it's kind of systems thinking where it's related to human activity, human behaviors, human thinking, how they manifest in behaviors, and the science, how it's ignored even by scientists. And how even people that have the best intentions, they don't deviate their behaviors. So it's like over 200 pages, but very little to read. And a good sequence of subjects and schemas brought in. And it's realistic. So I'm going to propose a project with my triad. I've got a few ideas for them to choose from. I hope they do this one because it will make the other ones more likely to be successful after, because it'll bring us back to reality, and we'll be able to reference ourselves and this project before when we deviate from reality through the concept of faith. By the way, faith, let me define it again. Faith in the process of decision making or responding with appropriate feelings or thoughts in connecting with reality and consequences and interactions that involve us. Faith, just like violence, is one of the tools of last resort. It is. There's a lot of intellectual laziness in it. Now, there are times if you exhaust everything intellectually speaking and you have to make a choice, and you dug for as much information as you could to make the right choice, but also understanding that wrong choices often lead you on the right path based on the choices you make later on. You don't want to make the final choice. I'll believe this, and then I don't have to worry about choices for the rest of my life, like most religions are. And yet they lead to, well, that's not what I call quality of life for the biosphere or for even those individuals that choose that. So there are times that faith, you got no choice to go there, but it should be very rare. Same thing with violence. There are times, if a gooker is trying to eat you and you're not ready to go in a very unpleasant way, violence is required. But violence between people that supposedly are great with language and conflict resolution skills and all these institutions, politics and education and all this stuff, and yet fail at it, I tell you, hey, you sure resort to violence a lot. So let's see what this 10 billion people book project I do with the triad results in. I wanted to say, it's kind of cute that the DSM-5 and probably others after include eco-related illnesses, as if you're switching to an ecocentric worldview. But do you know that that's often for prescribing more drugs? So it's the drug pushers that are like, hey, we got something new to prescribe drugs or experiment on people with, and not change the cause of these problems in them, right? We don't talk about it. We don't live our lives differently as elites. So how will we benefit from these victims that will grow, and they'll grow? There's two ways. You can continue being drug pushers, right, which is what it seems to be, or you can make assisted suicide a lot easier, because assisted suicide for the patient that has accumulated enough information about things that are going to get worse, not better, and really it comes from a society, which is most of them, that have not taught him or her the right skill sets or tools to become part of the solution, where that makes a person feel good. The accountability of that makes a person feel good, whether they, you know, and of course it won't make a difference, but it still feels good to be alive as part of the solution. That's a hope for me. I'd rather be alive as solution behaviors, for example, a minimalist, than as part of the problem, and either on drugs or not, just to make drug pushers more elite and richer. So give people that choice. But the way it should be in the medical system, when people are just very upset with what's happening in the world and suffer from some form of species alienation as well, it's not just eco-related, it's disappointed in the majority of their own species behaviors. Okay, species alienation, I coined this term years ago. So when they suffer from this, and really you can tell people aren't going to change, right? An electric car isn't going to save the planet, it's going to keep ruining it. And making straws to purify water, that's not going to go to everybody that needs it, especially not the people that need it the most. Plus, guess what? Other species require safe drinking water. Are you going to make straws for them and go teach the other species how to... No, you're not ecocentric. So stop being ridiculous as a species. So if there's assisted suicide, which we are already in the time that this should be in every part of every culture, and if there's a religion that says that's a sin, you're going to hell, everybody's going to shun you, or your own family is going to disown you, oh, that's a great thing to do to somebody that's already suffering from the state of the world that these families and ancestors kept creating. No, that's not okay. So make it that it's easy for people to choose this. Make it that they can prove that, you know, there's no system in my society that exists. Even the environmental movements or Greenpeace or politicians, you can tell really they're not that green, so I don't see things get better. And I don't see that I have the energy or the skill sets, or that there's programs I can afford to develop these things that are actually good quality. And it's not programs at university that have the word environmental in it when it's mostly business as usual. So let's say they've done their research and they present it. Then it should be one of the elite doctors, whether it's one that's comfortable with assisted suicide or as part of their beliefs or not. You want to be part of the medical system where you helped create such victims, such patients of your elitism and your nonsense business as usual? Then every doctor that wants to keep their license does a rotation and participates in these assisted suicides that should be easier to get, because our species is the biggest threat to this planet, and it is a gift of life, assisted suicide that is humane. So that means these doctors, as elites, must say, as an elite, this is the ceremony, it'll take 3 days in your assisted suicide, you get a chance to change your mind if you want, and this is how it goes, that we will make you feel appreciated for your sacrifice, for dying for our sins, really. Everybody gets to be Jesus. And say thank you very much. Thanks for not having kids. Thanks for delivering this research, documenting it, that this is the best you can do in this society that we've created. So I'm one of the bad guys. I'd like to apologize, but thank you for your sacrifice. This is not where we are. This is where you should have been quite a while ago. You know, there's going to have to be a part 3 of this. It's getting pretty long already. And I'm only at number 3. So yeah, I will continue on a different day, okay? But this is going to be my post for Master of Science in Ecocentric Worldview for today. And if sometimes I seem loud, it's to compensate for the wind. See some snow in the mountains there. And other parts I want to do during the month, because I'm trying to deliver my material that I wrote as part of how I shifted to a more ecocentric worldview, and demonstrate it in the writings I did, like firing my master's degree faculty, writing to the higher education, advanced education department of the Ministry of British Columbia, the silly response I got from them. Everything like this is going to be readings I'll do during the month as well. this last year is not going to be only on the first. I love you guys. I'm pro-life, but I'm pro-quality of life for every life form. And sadly, my species is not even close to this.